So it's mainly about the book first, I suppose. But hands up if you already know about why I wrote the book and how. Okay, so enough of you don't know that I don't feel bad saying it again. If you all said yes, we could just move on. I'm not, I wrote it because if you're an observational stand, come sit down. You're not blocking anything. Come on in. I wrote the book because so when I got diagnosed, I'd already been a professional stand-up for almost a decade, and if the stereotypes about autism were true, and well, hands up if you know what I mean if I say ASD1. A couple of people. Yes, so ASD in the DSM-5 is now ASD 1, 2, 3, whereas ASD 1 is analogous to what used to be Asperger's. ASD 2 is more care needs, ASD 3 is the most care needs. So I have ASD 1. If I'd been diagnosed on the 1st of January 2012, it probably would have been Asperger's, but a year later it's autism. So when I say autism, I qualify that by saying I'm in my flavor, I'm in ASD 1. All the stereotypes about ASD1 are that you don't have sort of empathy, or you can't talk to neurotypical people, or your worldviews are not understandable. If that was true, then I wouldn't have been able to make a living as an observational comedian to large audiences of neurotypicals, and not just neurotypicals, we're talking about drunk neurotypicals on a Saturday night. And the people who come to comedy clubs aren't big readers. That's not an intellectual crowd on a Saturday night. It's stag do's, hen do's, people throwing things. If I can be comprehensible to them, then, my thinking was maybe I could use the skills of a stand-up comedian, e.g. mass and relatable and simplified communication, to get something across about autism. Nothing complicated. That would be too much, because then the more complex you make the book, the more you just sell to the same 10,000 people who are interested in it. Whereas I thought if I could make it funny, funniness is the thing that lures people in to stuff that they otherwise have no interest in. If you have a child who's diagnosed, or if you're diagnosed, your incentive to read a book about autism is already there, it's very strong. But what if it's like your cousin, or maybe you don't know anyone, or maybe you just know me, or you know Frank Skinner, who's more famous than me, but I work with him. And if you can get unrelated people to learn about it, that's the social power. The people who have no dog in the fight are learning about it. Because people don't have time in their lives to learn about things that aren't directly relevant. It's very nice when they do, but no one has time for all of them. There's a limited amount of mental energy people have and time for causes that aren't directly affecting them. And people generally pick one or two to care about. So I thought if I could get some of that real estate for autism using humor. So that was the thinking behind it, to see if that was possible. And for it to be 101, because when you get diagnosed, especially as an adult, the books are very, very medical. They're textbooks, they're in a medical tone, they're addressed to the parents of a hypothetical child, so not you as a grown-up, which feels mad reading them. Or they're very interesting but quite specific autobiographies, which there'll be sections where you'll go, oh, I see, and there'll be sections where you go, that's completely nothing to do with me. They're not broad, but they're not supposed to be broad, they're an autobiography, they're someone's life. So I thought if I could do something along the lines of Tony Attwood's The Complete Guide to Asperger's from 2007, which was like a very broad and like very scientifically accurate kind of general thing for parents. If I could do that funny but for everyone, especially adults, then that would fix a gap in the market. And the main people it seems to have gotten through to are stubborn adult men and women who were told they had ADHD. Those are the two most common people I hear from. Or I hear from like the wife of the husband, who's like, yeah, he read it because comedy, but now he understands that he's incredibly autistic. Those are the two groups, I think, mainly. Yeah, so that was the logic, and because I'm a huge nerd, I tried to make it accurate, so there's footnotes and there's citations and things, and I'm very pleased that I've got a couple of people have got in touch who are diagnosing, or they're psychologists specializing in autism, and they now recommend it to patients, or there's people studying who use it as a thing for some people who they visit with as part of getting their clinical hours and stuff. So it's been relatively endorsed, as far as I'm aware, by people who actually know what they're talking about and aren't just a clown, which is very gratifying. So it is accurate, and it is broad, and it is shallow, but it's supposed to be shallow. It's supposed to be an introduction. If you've got a specialist thing going on, it's not supposed to do that. It's just a very much it's important to address specialist stuff and very, very deep things, or people with severe care needs or whatever, but I'm not qualified to do that, and I'm aiming for widen the base. Specialist stuff beyond that, I'll leave that to specialists. All I'm in a position to do is mass communication with people who aren't really listening. That's my job. I do it every day anyway, so I may as well do it for this. Yeah, that was it. That was why I did it. Pressure. It's only pressure if people were expecting it.
Yeah, I just meant more like the conversations that are
That's true. I would say I get a message from someone about the book. I think if you average them out, it might be one a day. Actually, I'm making a mistake that I shouldn't be making because I'm a professional. For the people watching, to repeat the comment, the book opening you up to conversations with people who've read the book, messages and things. Yes, I've only had 2 weird messages. One was from someone who runs some sort of shop in the middle of the United States, and they were autistic and they wanted to have all these long intellectual conversations with me, which is fine. I don't have time. I don't know who you are. I can't. It just takes too much brain energy to have a long text debate about abstract concepts with people, but fine. And the other one was a guy who, to be fair to him, he sent me a very long, crazy, rambling message, but at the start said, I'm almost certain I'm manic right now, so ignore this message. But then proceeded to write a long, crazy manic message anyway, which I thought was an amazing level of self-awareness. I thought, good for you. You've really got a handle on. Like, it's not great to go through manic phases, but you've got a real handle on it. Good for you. Other than that, people have been relatively, yes, quite brief messages. These, oh, thanks, So nothing too dramatic so far. I did get one strange. Actually, no, there's 3. One strange message on Facebook from a lady who was trying to ask me why her kid wouldn't put on their school uniform. Because there's a bit in the book about that, and I hated school uniform. And I sort of thought, well, it says in the book that if they hate it, they hate it. I mean, there's no more why than... I don't really understand the question, to be honest. Yeah, I think that's it. It's about asking an external party, is my kid doing something that is at least to be expected for their category? Yeah, I think that's true. A few people have got in touch saying that they read it as a family for their diagnosed kid, and I think, as a sort of almost a mild expectation setter. Maybe. Yeah, I think that's right. Yes, any questions or anything like that about the book, or 10th century Denmark, anything else? I don't mind, it's up to you. You've got me for however long this lasts, or later if we stop blocking. I think it's poetry, am I? Poetry corner?
Feminism.
Is it? Oh, I just saw Holly McNeish, and I did loose ends with her. She gave me a copy of that, so I assumed it was poems. Yeah? Yes?
Sorry.
No, you're my lifesaver right now. These guys, you're like taking bullet after bullet for these guys, questions-wise. Yeah.
I guess when you're writing like that about something that later in life, I suppose, causes a lot of reflections on things that you might have like an alternate memory, like a fractured memory about. And I guess like I wanted to really ask you about the experience of kind of looking at fractured memories in your past through the lens of researching people, and how you kind of, I don't know, does that have an effect on you, or has it kind of changed the way that you think about things, even externally? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, you've nail on the head, 100%. So for the remote viewers, being diagnosed and writing the book, providing an alternate lens with which to view your own experiences in the past, right?
Yeah, like 2 separate people.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I after I got my diagnosis, and I've said this to friends of mine who got diagnosed, I've said, watch out for the next 3 to 6 months of sort of daily flashbacks, where you go, oh, God, okay, that's why that happened, right, that's why I did that, or that's why that person thought I was crazy, or, yeah, loads of that, an absolute ton. And interesting to look back at school and realize, like, oh, I had a hypersensitivity to rejection. And I was, bullied by that guy. So that guy was an asshole, but also I was reacting like 100 times like hotter than a, yeah, well, often to assholes, or just like way like oversensitive for reasons beyond your control, where you just go, oh, I seemed insane because, like, statistically I was reacting in an insane way, in a way that is beyond the usual bell curve of reactions expected for a 9-year-old kid in that situation, or whatever. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But then it doesn't change the facts of it. So you look back and you go, even if I'd known that, like if I was, 9 years old, what level of self-control, what kind of like, the Buddha level 9-year-old would you have to be to sort of simply absorb the suffering and move on with key stage 2 maths or whatever you're doing. So I sort of look back quite like fatalistically and just think there's nothing to be done, Good to know now, good to keep an eye on. Maybe if you're diagnosed when you're 5 or 6 or something, you can, I don't know, you get taught a coping strategy, or you can file it under a different category in your head than just arbitrary cruelty. That's probably better than to spend 10 years thinking, there's a lot of arbitrary cruelty around today. Arbitrary cruelty. It has a sort of Cormac McCarthy sort of smell around it, doesn't it? Sort of horrifying, violent 20th century novel. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Anyone else?
There's someone online. So Sue has asked, have you changed the way you navigate comedy or articulate what you need since diagnosis, and how do people react?
I've changed the way I navigate comedy or articulate what I need since I've been diagnosed, and how do people react? Yes, I don't. I've got routines, obviously, about autism or being autistic, but I don't do them at rough Saturday night gigs. I'll do them at gigs where people seem like they can read. Which is not loads of gigs. But like, there's some clubs where the audience is just kinder and stuff, where like, you just be opening up yourself to heckles, no one's going to learn anything, it's going to be a negative experience for everyone involved. There's no point doing it. I have other routines, I don't have to mention it. So Bristol, like Comedy Box in Bristol, in the Hen and Chicken, that's like a club crowd, but it's like a nice club crowd. You can talk about it there. But, Leicester Square on a Saturday night with people with visible cocaine under their noses. It's not time to discuss neurodivergence. It's just sort of do 20 minutes of bum jokes and get out of there. Take your money and run. It has changed it. I'm much happier now to just blankly say to someone that I have no idea what they're talking about. So I used to feel the need to pretend. So if someone says something I don't quite know what they mean, I'll just say, I do not know what you mean. And I'll just keep saying that until they have explained it in a way I understand, which is really irritating for them. But I used to worry about seeming stupid or like I wasn't listening. Whereas now I am confident enough to say, no, I don't know what you mean. And to do it it's a different type of masking in a way. You have to do a different kind of uncomprehending face. One that's not, I don't know what you mean. You idiot. You say, I don't know what you mean. I'm a sort of stupid bird and you have to feed me what you mean from like your mouth, like seeds or something, So it is a different kind of masking in a way, but at least it's enabling you to not fly blind. I haven't done a writer's room for a comedy show since diagnosis, not in the real sense. So I don't know. I think I would react to that differently. I would maybe explain to the head producer about it. Or I have something to explain now, as opposed to just blankly thinking, well, I hope this happens to be someone who says what they mean. So yes, I would say yes, to an extent.
How does the experience of writing a book compare to writing for stand-up? How does it differ?
How does the experience of writing a book compare or differ from writing stand-up? So this year my Edinburgh show is my 10th hour of comedy I've done at the Fringe. So that's 10 years of solo shows. For someone who speaks at my pace or writes the way I do, a solo show is maybe at least 7,000 words, at most 9,000, which sounds like a lot, but a book has to be at least 80. So a single book contains 8 years worth of silly comedy shows, if you think about it that way. And if you write 500 words a day like Graham Greene used to, you can do 2 novels a year, which is an awful thought, really disgusting thought. I would say that when you see shows at the Fringe and they're dealing with some amazing topic for an hour and they're trying to be meaningful and clever. Some of them do succeed, but they can only really be meaningful and clever, I think, about one thing. You can't really get deep into it because they're restrained by their very requirement of being funny. At least half the words have to be joke-related. So imagine if, you could write an 80,000 word book, but 40,000 of the words had to be knock-knock jokes by law. You go, well, now I need to write a very long book in order to get anything across. I would say books are just infinitely better at getting across anything complicated or subtle or interesting, or there's no contest really. You can get across one big dramatic thing with a show, if it's done well, but you can't do what a book can do at all. And it requires a lot more. Well, it requires a lot more concentration in the sense that it's very delayed gratification. Because I live in London and I'm a known quantity in the world of stand-up. If I text a friend who runs a comedy night, I could write a new 5 minutes in the morning and I could try it out that night. So I get the adrenaline rush and I get the thrill of doing it and testing it immediately if I want it. I had to wait, It didn't exist for most of the time. It was the hardest, sort of just suffering every day, typing on the train. And then you wait for it to be published and you have to edit it and you have to listen to it and go through your own writing, which is horrible. And it's a slog. It's marathon versus sprint. I think the reason that the majority of comedians have ADHD is because it's an absolute dopamine festival. Constant adrenaline, constant feedback, constant, late nights, your own schedule, that kind of thing. Whereas, although I found the first month or so very difficult, after the first month of having a daily writing routine, I really loved having a routine, obviously. Because I don't really have a routine in my life. So having a thing to focus on every day and concentrate on felt really, really good. I really liked it. I can absolutely understand the reclusive author stereotype. Live in a lighthouse, pump out the thrillers. Yeah, why not? Yeah, they're very different. Yeah, much deeper in books. I could never have done a solo show for an hour that had the effect the book has had. There's no way. I don't think. Outside of it suddenly being distributed by Apple to everyone's house, whether they like it or not, like the U2 album. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so you're saying as someone with autism reading it, a lot of it seemed quite obvious, but maybe not to someone without it. How do you cross the gap? Analogies help. I did think to myself, obviously, if you have autism and already know, I thought, well, at least the book will count as a kind of, McIntyre level observational comedy, sort of obvious observations that are still nice to go, yeah, I did that. The gap was crossed by, analogies and things, and also just a lifetime of unknowingly explaining my own thinking to others and myself without a diagnosis. And so always searching for equivalence or trying to just imagine it's sort of, I'm trying to think of a good example. I got a message from someone who said that they didn't understand why their partner got so stressy when they changed plans at the last minute. But they understood because I said, imagine if someone said to you, we're preparing for a baby shower, and you got all the bunting and the baby shower cake and all the thing, and then the day before they said, it's Halloween party tomorrow, actually no. You go, but I've done all this brain prep, I've set my brain up for a baby shower party, and now you're telling me it's Halloween. And they said that was the only way that they understood the level of left turn that it felt like for the other person. So essentially it's constant analogies, really. And luckily a lot of comedy is analogies. You'll notice, not to ruin comedy for you guys, but a lot of jokes are phrased, that's like if. Oh, Donald Trump boop-de-boo did bloop-de-blue, that's like if. Comparative thing did similar thing, that's mad. There's always people love it, that's like if. Just, you can pump them out. You can have a whole career of that's like if. So yeah, I think mainly just analogies and trying to find sort of equivalents that even if they're not perfect, they get the idea across at a gut sense, in that sort of sense of something that's not literally true, but it is ecstatically true. I've been listening to a lot of Werner Herzog, his autobiography, and he has a whole thing on the ecstatic truth, and something doesn't have to be literally true to be functionally true, which is a complicated way of saying just lie in an analogy and people will get your point. So it's not literally like a Halloween party, but it works on people. Yeah.
There's another follow-up from
Yes.
online. Samir is asking, are your book crowds different to your comedy crowds, and is the publishing world harder to navigate?
Are my book crowd's different to my comedy crowds, and is the publishing world harder to navigate? The publishing world is very slow. I couldn't believe. I always thought comedy was like slow and run by very like relaxed people who just do fun things. And publishing is like the timelines are years. You know, no one gets excited if something is even a month away. Whatever. The time just drips like honey. It's so slow. But then I'm used to do the comedy that night. You know, let's get it out there. Let's do the Fringe. Let's go. It's very slow. The money is very bad. Unless you are a celebrity or you just happen to write a kind of murder mystery thing that gets turned into an Apple series, and then, you know, blah, blah, blah. The money is poor. And the book crowds are very, very nice. I'd say, because before the book came out, I think I'd already done 2 shows where I talked about autism and things like that. So they started to merge a bit already, but they are different. I mean, you know, you guys are relatively different to the comedy crowd, but not that much at the Fringe. At the Fringe, I'd say they're the same people. You're at the Fringe. You know, that's who comes to the Fringe is fringy people. I'm not sure yet, really. I haven't really had book crowds. I did a thing at Bradford Literary Festival with Robin Ince, but I think most of the crowd there is for Robin Ince. So I don't really have a comparator yet. A lot of the messages I get are from people who have lives where they can't come to live comedy because they've got 2 or 3 kids, or they live in bumhole nowhere, or they have care needs, or their partner has care needs, or whatever. So that I suppose is the difference. Yeah. But publishing is I found it easier to get a book published than to get a TV show made. So even though there's not much money in publishing, there seems to still be more than there is in TV. I think just because books are an opt-in thing, and TV's treated as it's what's on, and people will be upset if they don't like it thing. So yeah, there's different markets and things, but yeah, it's still, you pitch an idea, they want you to do all the work for free. You do half the work for free, they say no. That's largely what it is. So get used to doing work for free, I suppose. More depth.
Yeah, but also like, reading so personal, and it's an interior experience where it's like playing
I think that's true. Yeah, I think book crowds are probably more like music crowds in that respect, where they like singing along. Whereas if someone can sing along to your jokes, they're going to want their money back. Yeah. Comedy is all about novelty. That's another limiting factor in the shows here, which is that you're trying to do this hour show where you teach someone this valuable lesson about whatever, but you have to satisfy the humor factor and the novelty factor. And most humans can't listen closely for over 45 minutes. Most lectures aren't that long, and shows are 60 minutes. So if any of your big important messages reliant on people remembering combinations of specific word for word, it's not gonna. Late at night after 2 pints as well in a shipping container, no, forget it. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say that's true. Books are more like music in that respect, definitely. Yes.
Have you found that your diagnosis has helped you to reframe or understand the ways that you perform stand-up, whether that's writing, doing video, something like that?
Has my diagnosis helped me to reframe the way I perform stand-up and writing?
Yeah, also understand the things that you already did.
Yes, yeah. So to understand the things I already did. Yes, all my routines looking back are autistic. Completely, 100%. My most successful routine, probably ever, is about food texture. It's like an 11-minute routine about food texture. I had a routine about how I didn't have a happy enough face while I was doing things, and it would stress out my ex-girlfriend. I had a routine, it's like to the point where it's embarrassing, yes. I went through my old shows and it was like, you could use this for the NHS. It's like a checklist of the problems you would have if you were autistic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And it also explained why I had written observational routines about things that I thought would work that didn't. So I tried once to do routines about what I now know to be some form of demand avoidance. And people just have no idea what you're talking about. I've said to people over the years, you know that thing where there's something you really need to do and you want to do it and you don't do it for no reason and just watch it collapse in front of you like a burning building? And they're like, what? That sounds horrible. What are you talking about? I mean, it doesn't matter. And then in comedy, more likely, I'll tell a comedian that and they go, oh yeah, of course. Well, the audience didn't get that? And you go, all right, comedian probably in the gang. Probably lives on Neurodivergent Avenue, if not in my house. So that makes sense why comedians would always find it relatable. Yeah. So it does explain several notable failures of routines that I would cut from Edinburgh shows. We spent the whole year preparing this festival, so you cut a bunch of stuff in like March or May, where you just go, yeah, that's just not firing. So I cut that out. But I managed to make the thing about food texture comprehensible enough that it flew. So that's in fact, your earlier question, that's another way I learned to make neurotypical people understand things is through trial and error. Over a decade of writing stand-up, you just start to learn what people respond to and what they don't. So even if, the majority of audiences don't agree that all the food in the UK is wet, which is what the routine is about. And in reality, most food around the world is quite wet, in some way. But if you phrase it right, you can get across the kind of horror of what you mean in the moment, even if it doesn't stand up to academic scrutiny. You're getting vibe across as opposed to info. And vibe is enough to start them empathizing. And that's what you need. Yeah.
Fern Brady has talked about like accidentally cultivating a particular kind of audience that did just get the kind of comedy she was doing. Do you feel like you accidentally brought a tribe along that once you found out they were all like, yeah, dude, this is why we're in the room?
Fern Brady accidentally cultivating an autistic audience, and did I find that I had brought a tribe along, and then when I got diagnosed, they were all like, yeah, of course. Actually, when I got diagnosed, they all went, wait, what? Because they were all, like, I got messages from, in 2022, when I did that first show about it, I got messages from a lot of guys who were sort of like in their 30s or early 40s and were the same as me in lots of ways, and I was the source for them, as opposed to them going, no, that's why we like you. They didn't know. I thought this was all normal. I got a message from a guy saying, during that show, about the first show about getting diagnosed, he was sitting there going, this is like the ultimate observational show for me. This is how I feel about everything. And then at the end I said, oh, it's because I have autism. And he went, oh, God, okay. All right. And he went away, and yeah, he's one of us. So yes, but the other way around. I was leading the blind. I was leading the ignorant, as opposed to Fern, who had unknowingly surrounded herself with people who knew. Yeah, I think that's the other way around, but it's the same phenomenon. Anything else? Yeah. Oh no, they're behind you.
I was wondering, because you were touching on the reason why you're sure there's so many people with ADHD in this market.
Yes.
That instant openness.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any slightly more all-encompassing reason for general neurodiverse to be so common in South Korea, or is it all specific reasons for each individual?
I think generally, I think it's to do with the commonality of self-employment among neurodivergents. If you are employed, being self-employed is very, very common, because you can control your own weird sleep schedule, or if you're an incredibly productive person, but it has to be between midnight and 4 a.m., you can't do that in an office or in a way that some little manager guy will understand. So you need to be a freelance, and they don't see how the sausages are made. They just know they've got this contractor they hire sometimes, and he produces this amazing work really quickly. They don't know it's at 4 a.m., with 7 Monster Energy cans around you, and intermittently you just have to take breaks to do this or that. They don't understand. So if you're able to function like that in a field of whatever it might be, it's often something that lends itself to self-employment, like graphic design or coding, or you can't function in an office environment, and not because you can't function, but because the system does not recognize your functioning and can't accommodate it. you can't explain to a room full of other office workers that, you know, Barry gets special treatment and comes in at 3 a.m. and that's why he's never in, and they won't tolerate it. Maybe they should, but the fact is they just currently don't, and so you have to be freelance. And you can sleep in, and you don't have to take public transport, thank God. So that's a big part of it, I think, is control of your schedule. If you are autistic and you do stand-up, yes, there's other reasons where people have to listen to you talk about something you're interested in. You just have to make it funny. But they do have to listen, that's for sure. You're not in a crowd. The crowd's over there. You're on your own still. So you can be at a comedy show, but not surrounded in a horrible crowd. And you know, you're in a nice backstage bit with other nerds. It's the perfect way to watch comedy. You only ever interact with other comedians whose special interest is also comedy, so you're just constantly discussing your special interest with other special interest people. Like, it's perfect once you realize that stage fright is optional, or at least the price you're willing to pay for that lifestyle. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's special interest prone. I think it's dopamine prone. It's self-scheduling. It's self-employment, and because it's about comedy, and comedy is about much. Comedy is the live version of the level of free expression and say controversial things that you expect from literature. So that means that if you do come into a green room, and let's say that you're an incredibly dysregulated, you know, person in some way, that's what comedians are expected to be like. And there's an almost ideological feeling in green rooms that you shouldn't have a problem with it, because you've chosen to join the circus. So if someone comes in honking their nose with pie all over their face, you're not like, ugh, you know, you're in the circus, that's a clown, that's, you know, this is what it's like. Go work in an office if you want to be all normal. So you get like comedians who, you know, I know a comedian who I met through club comedy who was a heroin addict for 20 years and lived in squats and stole things and, you know, had this crazy life, and that's just an anecdote you're going to hear at work. And that's why I like it. I don't want to live and work in a place where you people felt a bit strange about your story about flying to Cambodia just for the heroin. So I want to work somewhere where I can hear a story like that. I like weirdos. I like strange people and interesting stories and things like that. So I think it's actually in a slightly sort of freak show way. It's a much more welcoming place than just a normal office where you have to mind your P's and Q's and people can't find out anything about you, or you can't have any opinions. Or it's a very tolerant place. And as a result, ironically, you can hear some quite mad shit because of the tolerance, which is, you know, that's, in my view, those two things come together. So I think that's why. If anyone who's weird is going to do it. It's so rare to meet a normal comedian. I can only think of maybe one. Well, even then, they're weird because they're not, yeah. They're almost sinisterly calm and normal. It's very, very rare. Yeah.
I think we've got time for like one more burning question, and then we can borrow you next door to sign some books, and if anyone was too shy to ask a question in front of a crowd, they can
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, big time. Did that today. Did that today and last night. Yes, yeah. So in terms of disordered eating, yeah, absolutely. I can't. As I said on the podcast, I don't think I've ever really been full in my life, apart from maybe twice. Interoception, yeah. I'd never heard of interoception, just the ability to tell if you're hungry or thirsty or if you're full. Especially as a kid, if I had something to focus on and get hyper-focused on, I would not drink a drink from when I woke up till 8 p.m. And I wouldn't notice. I'd notice that I felt mad, but until I drank some water, I wouldn't realize why. And I'd drink water and go, oh, right, yeah, I was thirsty, it turns out. Like, it would be like a mystery I'd solve. But I just thought that was a consequence of being really interested in what I was doing. But no, yeah, definitely, yeah. It's provided an explanation. It hasn't made it any easier to deal with particularly, but it means that at least you know why. And it does mean that if you're like me and you don't really know when you're hungry or thirsty or when you're full, you do need to track what you eat and drink in a way that comes across to some people as unhealthy, because they're used to being on the lookout for stuff to do with anorexia or disordered eating from the other end of the spectrum, say. And they're right to be on the lookout for that, but also I would get like almost told off by people for tracking what I was eating and drinking when I was functioning well. But that's what I needed to do to function well. So it's just another reminder that, you know, there's no catch-all advice. Like, the situation I'm in specifically, I should be tracking. I've accidentally eaten 7,000 calories in a day. If I keep doing that, I will die. I will have a bad time. So I shouldn't do that, because I can do it without trying and without noticing. So I'm like one of those Labradors that's got that thing where they don't know when they're full. So just they eat till they're sick over and over again, and then you have to rehome them. I will do that to myself, and I will enjoy doing it, right up until my stomach is hanging out of my own face. It's given me the confidence at least to know what the remedy is. I still haven't fixed it. But yes, it does help with stuff like disordered eating that isn't a direct part of autism, but is a co-occurring thing, or can be. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Is there a final burning question? If not, can you remind us when we catch your show at the Fringe?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. 7:05 p.m. at the Monkey Barrel. It gets fucking hot down there, so watch out. Like shorts and a t-shirt is the. Don't come in a big coat because you think you're in Edinburgh. It's no. And if you arrive slightly later but with a ticket, you can sit on the back row where you'll get most of the aircon. It's not aircon. This is the UK. It's a pipe that leads to a slightly colder room, and that air comes into that room. So if that room's hot, then it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So yeah, come in last with a ticket, sit at the back, and wear shorts and a t-shirt.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Thanks.